Amo, can you talk us through some of the differences and similarities between US Air Force and RAF flight gear?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike, for having me on once again. So, as we've discussed in some of the previous interviews, I've been in the T-38 and the F-22 and the Typhoon, and all three of those had different sets of kit. So when I started in the T-38, it was kind of the old school, very basic kit as far as the older G trousers and the older jacket, but the helmet is basically the same as what you would wear in pilot training. So I just carried over my pilot training helmet to that, and the oxygen mask and the hose is adapted to be able to be in the T-38 or any other platform there in the USAF. So that was there. That was sufficient for the T-38. Some of the differences between the T-38 and the Raptor were mainly the parachute. So in the A model, you wear kind of this we called it the turtleback parachute. If you ever see pictures of it, or if you ever see T-38 A model pilots walking out to the jet, they've got this huge parachute
Yeah,
strapped
I've
to their
seen it.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it weighs quite a bit. I want to say it weighs 20 kilos or so, and so you're walking all the way out to the jet with this huge parachute strapped to your back. And if you see the ejection seat before you sit in it, it's got this large cavity in the backrest for that parachute to rest in, and then you got to just twist and contort yourself all sorts of ways to get this parachute strapped to you, or well, it's already strapped to you. Get the parachute and yourself strapped into this 1960s ejection seat. So that took a little bit of getting used to, but once it got into muscle memory, you got the hang of it. So that is one thing about the T-38A piece of kit that I don't miss at all.
I can
And then
imagine.
going to the Raptor with the more modern Aces ejection seat, where the parachute is part of the seat and not you, uh, that was a huge difference going into that. And then we upgraded from the Legacy G Suit to the A-Tags G Suit, which was just orders of magnitude better than the old school bladder G suit that just inflated these different bladders and tried to keep you awake while you're pulling G's. The A tag was uh, just a much better design, much more comfortable, easier to don and doff, and way more effective in keeping you awake while pulling 9 Gs. So really good piece of kit with that, and combined with the what we call the upper pressure garment, or UPG, if you were planning on flying high altitude. Both of those worked in tandem with your helmet to provide pressure breathing so that you would stay awake not only under high G, but if you had a high altitude decompression. When I say high altitude, I mean in these jet platforms, when you go up into the 50,000 foot regime,
Hmm.
if you had a rapid decompression at that altitude, you needed to have full G coverage in order for it to inflate and provide pressure breathing and basically help keep you alive in that regime. Obviously, if you're a U-2 pilot or a pilot for SpaceX or something going higher, you're going to need to be in a full spacesuit for that, or else your blood is literally going to boil and you'll die instantly if you have a decompression at
Yeah.
those much higher altitudes. But thankfully, in the Raptor, or even in the Typhoon for that matter, we didn't go high enough for that type of risk. But we still needed a kit that was sufficient to keep us breathing, keep us awake for having a decompression at 50,000 feet. So after the F-22, moving to the Typhoon, the kit in the Typhoon was very similar to the Raptor. The G trousers, the LSJ or the life support jacket, and the helmet were conceptually identical in what it did and how it did, but the getting it all strapped on and taking it all off was very different. So people would laugh at me, but going into the Raptor and going into the Typhoon, I literally allocated an afternoon or two of just putting the kit on and taking the kit off, because not only did you get issued brand new kit, and it actually had to get kind of broken in a little bit and get stretched out a bit, and so doing that several times helped stretch it out and get it broken in. But also, the better I got muscle memory wise of getting the kit on and off, the less time it would take and the more time I would be able to then allocate towards actually getting to the jet or getting the jet prepped, and I didn't have to be rushed in those regimes or sprinting to debrief. So that time invested in getting good at putting the kit on and off really paid dividends in making sure I wasn't stressed or rushing for the next phase of flight or debrief. Now, that being said, I get asked a lot, well, which piece of kit did I like better, the Raptors kit or the Typhoons kit? And I'm going to have to give the win to the Typhoon kit.
Wow.
Yep, surprise. So I thought the G trousers and the jacket and the helmet overall as a system provided better G protection than even the A tags and what they called Combat Edge, the pressure breathing system for the Raptor. And I'm not talking way better. They're both really good. Thank God, knock on wood, I never had a G-induced loss of consciousness or G-lock. I was always able to stay awake in both jets, and the kit was very good and instrumental for that. But I just felt like the Typhoon kit was better, and I was more comfortable under G than in the Raptor kit. Also, if we're going to talk about helmets, in the Raptor, we don't have an advanced helmet like Jehemix or Striker, or like the Typhoon currently has with the HMSS. It's just the plain normal helmet that we wore in pilot training. Whereas in Typhoon, of course, we've got the HMSS or the standard. I think did we talk about this last time? Was it the Mark 10 helmet?
Mark 10, yeah.
Yeah, the Mark 10 helmet. So once you step up to the Typhoon HMSS, it's just a whole different ballgame. And I went from the basic helmet to the HMSS, and I was like, wow, this is like flying a spaceship compared to the no helmet in the Raptor. Now, the Raptor sensors and its radar are more advanced and are more capable than the Typhoon, but just having that helmet and being able to look around and either cue a missile or look around and see with symbology where my wingman is or where the target is vastly increased my SA in the jet. Whereas in the Raptor, you have to look at the screens and correlate that to where that is positionally in space around you. And it was just a little bit more difficult to gain tally or gain visual on who you were trying to find out there in the airspace. And I do hope it is in the development pipeline. I do hope the Raptor does get a helmet, and maybe that'll happen soon. As far as I'm aware, they still wear the same helmet. It's kind of this helmet right. Sorry, this is awkward. That helmet right there on my shelf. That's the same helmet I wore in pilot training and all throughout my Raptor career. So that's kind of a broad brush overview of the differences. What else you got?
I've got a couple of questions here for you, Arnold.
Yeah,
So let's talk about the helmet. So obviously your basic one from the T-38 and Raptor. I felt one of them before. It's like
yeah,
a ping pong ball, isn't it? Basically, compared
yeah,
to like something like I've got a Mark 10 RAF Mark 10 in here, and there's considerably different size, like in terms of weight. Does that make a
yeah.
difference when you're flying and pulling G?
It does. It does because remember, if especially if you're pulling 9G, if
Mm,
you are if your helmet weighs, let's say, 5 kilos, I don't think the Mark 10 weighs that much. Now you multiply that times 9, and so it's 4 kilos. Now it's 36 kilos on your neck,
yeah.
and so even the difference in maybe 1 kilo. And I don't know if the difference between I think it's called the Gentex helmet in the USAF.
Mm,
Um, but even the difference of 1 kilo, that's a difference of 9 kilos
mm,
strain on your neck when you're pulling 9Gs. So definitely the USAF helmet, the Gentex helmet was more comfortable
mhm.
in that sense, where I felt that the Mark 10 helmet and the mask, I felt that it fit my face a little bit better. So from a pressure breathing standpoint, the Mark 10 was better in that sense. And then, of course,
Mm.
the HMSS was heavier than the Mark 10. So when you're pulling G's with that, you really did felt it. So you really had to be careful with the HMSS when you were pulling G. So you really had to brace your head against the
Right.
backrest and make sure that once you start pulling and you hit 9Gs, you had to make sure that you set your you kind of look like this, kind of setting your head against the backrest. And you're kind of just
Yeah.
moving your eyeballs around. And
Uh-huh.
if you were going to move your head around with that helmet on, you either had to let off the G's a little bit and then reposition your head, or you had to strain under G.
Mm.
And several times, my neck was really sore after doing that. So they really
Wow.
cautioned us against doing that. And uh, a lot of pilots do have lasting neck issues with range of motion or kind of long lasting aches
Hmm.
and pains afterwards
Yeah.
due to that type of stress that you put on the neck under G with the different types of helmets. So that's a long-winded answer to,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that the Gentex helmet was way more comfortable in the sense of pulling G's.
Yeah. Another thing before I've got one more question after this is the masks. Like, I think RAF masks are there, but the US Air Force ones go right under here. Is that not uncomfortable? A bit of plastic right under your chin, sitting there, rather than just sitting. No, does it not make a difference?
You get used to it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you get used to it. The main, at least for me, the main point of discomfort was right here at the bridge of the nose, where
Hmm.
if the mask wasn't sized or fit right, a lot of times, sometimes there's pictures of me where I've got a scar on the bridge of my nose here because the
Yeah.
mask would just keep scarring that part of my nose. And
Hmm.
obviously, if you see pictures of anyone just after a flight, they've all got the
Yeah. That the
ring, the
thing.
mask ring
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
around their face. Uh, so no matter what, the mask is going to be tight, but you just kind of forget that you
Get
have
used
it
to it.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah, last question from me here is which did you prefer using, the RAF gloves or the USAF gloves?
No, as far as what I was issued, maybe the we call them squippers in the RAF,
Yeah.
the life support technicians, the gloves that I was issued, I thought that they were very similar to what I was issued in the USAF. So, but it just depends on the squadron, I guess, or what equipment they got issued at that time. So I could definitely see that if someone was issued an all leather pair of gloves versus the what we got in the USAF was just kind of like a hybrid of
Mhm.
of cloth and leather. I would say I definitely prefer that, but what I remember being issued in 29 Squadron was a hybrid one.
Oh, right, okay. And one last question I've got from like one viewer here. Did you get to keep your RAF helmet like you did your Raptor helmet?
Sadly, no. The
Oh,
UK or the RAF is in many respects very efficient with its resources. So despite me trying to scheme how am I going to sneak this out of here, ultimately I was like, no, I don't want to cause an international incident and
No.
smuggle one of your 1950s technology Mark 10s out of the country.
You must have got did you keep your visor covered though?
I did. Yes, it's around here somewhere.
So you got to keep that at least, yeah. But
I did. I did. No, they were not keeping that. I was definitely keeping my visor cover because it was personalized. It said ammo on it and it had the 29 Squadron emblem on it. So, absolutely, that's a souvenir of my time.
Absolutely. Well, Amo, thank you very much for coming on the show again and chatting about your flight gear with the US Air Force and the RAF. So, thank you very much.
Cheers, Mike. Looking forward to the next discussion.
Cheers.